quietly. Out of all of these things that I've written down for me to do, the thing that I most want to work on is, I think, to suspend the execution of the program while it's in debug mode. So I think that's what I'm gonna work on. To give you a little bit of context. So currently the way this thing works is we compile a program written in the play programming language, which looks like this. We compile this program into a JavaScript file. So, well, it first goes into an AST file and then it goes into a JavaScript file. So, and the JavaScript file is gonna look something like this. There's a lot of runtime auxiliary functions besides the actual text of the program. And then for this program, there's a lot actually, including the time traveling debugger, which is in here. And then finally, finally we have the actual program, which looks like this. The mechanism for storing variables uses a synthetic stack and a sort of a synthetic heap, both of which work in an immutable way, so that when we mutate state in the program, it doesn't actually mutate those data structures. Those data structures are immutable, so it creates a new version of the stack and a new version of the heap, etc., so that we have access to all of the previous states of the program. Which is why we use instead of using actual JavaScript variables, we use these set variable and set heap variable and get variable and get heap variable functions to access the variables. Now what I need to do, and then once you have this JavaScript file, you load it up in an HTML file like so, and then you open up that HTML file, and there is the program going. Okay, and at the moment this debugger user interface initializes. When does it initialize? Well, it initializes when this main function has finished executing, which is actually, I'm not even sure that is true. It might be at load time. Create debug UI. When is this called? Oh, it is the last line of this program, so which means it should, even though this is a promise, currently we're not really using any async await functionality just yet, even though this is an async function and we have made it possible to do so in the future, but currently we're actually not doing that yet. So this creating of the debug UI happens basically after the main function has finished, which at this point, with the addition of event handlers, I feel that maybe that's not the best place to do it, because you can have user interactions such like hit enter. You can have an apple. Go to the library. You can have user interactions such as these, which will affect the state of the program, add more history to the program, And we could either have the debugger just always be catching up to those new things happening, or we could just have it such that you, in order to get this debugger UI, you have to explicitly say, I want to go into debug mode, and then it opens this thing up. I guess either way might be workable. I actually haven't thought too much about having the debugger always up and just have it catch up as you go idea. But I thought, let's just try instead of having this debugger UI always up, have a button that turns it on. Okay, so which means, and also I have this is browser variable, which is on when we're running the program in the browser, because it's also possible to write Node.js programs in this language, or I should say, run programs inside the Node.js environment. Okay, so I think what I'm gonna do is delete this line, and if we did that, then this debugger UI would no longer come out. But to make that happen permanently, because this todo.js is a generated file, if I modify this guy, the next time I generate it, it would have that line in it. Again, let me just show you that. Compile todo.play. It regenerates this todo.js again, and you again have this line. So to get rid of that line for good, you need to go into the runtime JS. No, it's not in runtime.js. It's actually in generator.js. Generator.js just puts this line in using this concat. So I'm gonna get rid of this. And now compile. And then, yeah, it doesn't have the debugger UI in there for good. But now what I would like to do is to create a button which had the programmer clicked on the button, it would start this debugger UI. So perhaps what I'm gonna do, let me think. The code I've written so far just goes ahead, and I also need to perhaps delete the UI or clean up the UI after itself if we turn off the debugger. So that's something also. So let me create another function. Let's call it create debug button. I'm gonna use the raw DOM API to make DOM elements, and if you've never done this before, then this might be an educational experience. This is how you create a DOM element, and I want a button to say debug. So I say its text content is debug. And I want to append it to maybe the document element. Let me think. Where did I choose to put it? Yeah, I did it to the document element so that it's not in the body, so it doesn't interfere with the actual program. So let me try that. Alright, so I've done this, and let me do the same kind of trick where if it's a browser, it'll do this, but instead of creating the debug UI, I'm gonna create the debug button instead. the button? I don't see the button. Did it do it? Oh. Create debug button is not defined. Did I write it in the wrong file? Create debug button. Yes, I did. I put it in the to-do.js file, which was the generated file again. Dang it. Okay, let me put it in the runtime file. Compile it again. And and there's the debug button. Now, the debug button probably wanna put it in like the bottom right corner or something. Let's do that. So I'm gonna do okay. I'm gonna say position absolute. This is just prototyping because when you're styling something, it's more helpful to see the effect immediately. So maybe I would say it's position absolute, or maybe it should be position fixed actually. Because what if the content exceeds the thing? Position fix bottom 0 and right 0. Okay, the debug button is right here. Maybe give it just slightly a little bit of padding, or alternatively we could have a div which is called debugger and have everything that's debug related inside that thing. Excuse me, my phone is ringing. Okay. Yeah, and then so alternatively we could put this button inside of div, which would contain all of the debugger related stuff. And then when we create the debugger would go in there. Just to be very clear that this is the debug, this is the area for the debug content. So I'm gonna do that. Debugger content is document that create element div and debugger. I'm gonna give it a maybe ID or class. Let's give it an ID. Debugger content. And then I'm gonna append the debugger content to the document element, but append the append the button to the debugger content, and then I think what I would say is the debugger content style that position is fixed. Bottom is 0 pixel. The same as here actually. Let me think. So the debugger already has these stuff in it. I'm sort of changing my mind about that a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna change my mind about that. I'm just gonna have the button. Just going to have the button, and I'm gonna give this button ID, call it debug button. That's not really necessary though. I'll just give it some styles. Position fixed, style bottom, so that it's not completely flush to the bottom. I'll say 5 pixels, so it has a little bit of border. Alright, see if that works. And this is, I'm coding in JavaScript now. Yeah, it's got a little bit of a border. You can click on it. There's nothing, but I'm gonna make it even listener, click. Let me see how our streaming quality. The streaming quality is actually not great. Okay, I'm gonna actually end the stream then.